How did they diagnose you with the Crohn's?
They told me, it's Crohn's disease. My wife just burst into tears. He's going to die. The toll on my mental health was starting to play massively. I was having some pretty dark thoughts.
So you had your stoma formed in 2016.
I've really kind of struggled with that, kind of looking down and kind of seeing it. Did I ever think I would put on social media a picture of my top half of my body with my stoma out? Never in a million years. And feel proud of that. This has helped me. It's got me through to where I am now.
Welcome back to Beyond the Pouch. We're your hosts, Rachel and Louise. We are thrilled to be here with you for another episode. Today we have a special guest, Kevin, who will share his mental health journey and his experiences in the workplace with a stoma. Hi, Kevin.
Hello,
Hi.
Kev. So we have met you already because you are a newly appointed ambassador.
I am,
So
yeah.
we spent some time together at the latest get-together.
We did.
And you're now crutch-free.
I am crutch-free, yeah. Fantastic news.
Oh. Did you enjoy that? Because that was your first experience meeting so many other ostomates, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think, it's something that I've always wanted to do, but obviously never had the opportunity. And then when obviously someone reached out to me and asked me and, to see all you guys doing this day in, day out, it's been fantastic. And to be part of that was great. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was brilliant. Yeah,
Well, it's lush having you part of the fam.
Thank you.
We're all quite friendly, really, aren't we?
Probably too friendly.
Yeah, I did get that.
I think
There's no place for you, really.
We've all seen each other in our underwear.
Yeah.
Far too many
much.
times, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so obviously I read your story before you come onto the podcast, and it's kind of a bit similar to mine. Obviously, my timeline's about 5 years before you, but you suffered a burst appendix, and I remember when that happened to me and going to the doctors and like they said to you and you're like, it doesn't happen to men. So what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I always remember it's very vivid. I mean, I was a retail manager at the time. I remember bending down to pick something up in the corner of the office and felt this big pop in my stomach. And I thought, God, what was that? And I turned to someone else. I think my appendix had just gone. And the lady I was working with, she went, it's never going to happen. You'd be rolling round on the floor. Didn't feel well, the rest of the day. Drove home and had a good hour's drive back home and, still didn't feel too well and went to the hospital. Out of hours, they told me it was, a water infection and just to take some antibiotics. 5 days later, 5 different appointments with different doctors all saying the same thing. I rang my dad and said, something not right. Mm. And he took me to hospital and just said, you need to sort him. Mm. And within 30 minutes of seeing the doctor was kind of told I was going for an operation. They thought my appendix had burst and kind of that was the diagnosis, I guess, at that point. Worried, scared, because I'd never had an operation. I'd never even been in hospital, stayed over and to be told straight away you're going in for an operation. And almost what I didn't realise at that time, what was going to start the journey of something quite incredible of where we are today.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, my appendix burst in 2002, like end of 2002, and I was the same. I was working at a petrol station. I used to do the night shift. I used to do like the night hour shift through to like 6 a.m. in the morning. And my appendix went when I was like, I felt it go. Yeah. And I remember taking ibuprofen and paracetamol and nothing was making me feel better. Mm-hmm. Got sent home from A&E the night before, being told it was a UTI. And it was only because I collapsed at work that my mum got me and rushed me up to the hospital. And the next thing I know, I'm being taken down to a theatre. I don't even remember, because I was septic, I didn't even remember being taken down to theatre until I come round after having it done, which is when I found out I was allergic to morphine. But yours was a lot worse than what mine was. And
Yeah, I mean, it took in total of, them kind of trying to pack, trying to sew up the wound that just kept opening with pressure. I mean, the pressure kept, to the point of like a pyramid on the side of my belly, and it would just pus. Oh, wow. And it would be horrendous, and it took 16 weeks in total for that infection to clear up. And, I mentioned before, of them threading a baby feeding tube through a hole this side of my stomach and it coming out the other side. And, that was the track of infection that had been left. And them trying to resolve that over time.
So did they check you for MRSA?
Maybe. I'm not sure at that point.
Just because
it was a blur.
Yeah.
I've been rushed in. I'm kind of they're prodding, they're poking.
Yeah.
I haven't got a clue what they're doing.
Was you still working during all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud worker. I come from a family where my dad's very old school, kind of gaffer in, manufacturing. So being that old school, you get to work. If you're sick, you get to work. So yes, I worked throughout it. And even when, I was still having that infection and it's still been there, I was still going into work. And yes, they supported me by eventually sending me home and saying, look, enough's enough. You need to be at home and recover. But I think throughout this whole journey, I've learnt really to probably take more time for myself and make sure I take the time to recover. And I think you only learn that with experiences and situations that happen. Remember, I'd not had anything like this happen.
Yeah.
I'm almost like, it's happened, I'm just going to get back to work tomorrow scenario. It's sort of like that. Am
I right in saying you developed a fistula after you had your appendix removed?
Yeah. So that was pretty much what that kind of was, that tunnel, that fistula. And we talk about fistulas with Crohn's, as I progressed through my journey.
It's surprising that you didn't get a diagnosis then, because obviously post-op fistulas is common in people with Crohn's disease.
I think at that point, they did what they did. They put me back together and almost just sent me on my way. I guess after that, things started to not feel right in that area.
Yeah.
And what I would attribute to kind of just belly aches. And I always laugh now. I say to my wife, I says, I'm sure your mum's was trying to food poison me. Oh. and honestly, we would go round for Sunday dinner and, I would eat my Sunday dinner and I would literally rush off to the toilet within seconds. Oh. And I was like, Jen, I'm pretty sure your mum's doing something. And she was like, Kev, it can't be. But that really was the start of me questioning doctors.
The next 15 years.
What was going on? I've had the burst appendix, still got these pains. What now?
I mean, you was diagnosed the year that I gave birth to my daughter, so she's 15 this year, so this would be your 15-year anniversary. How did they diagnose you with the Crohn's?
Yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind. I mean, how it all happened. I mean, I went into hospital. They obviously admitted me with this pain. I remember going onto this really new ward that I can still see it now, this new ward that they'd got. And they wanted to do some tests. So they did the MRIs and everything else. And then they give me the barium drink, which is the dreaded barium drink, which I think we've all probably had. Yes. Trying to drink something that resembles concrete is not...
It was chalk, wasn't it? It was basically liquid chalk.
It's not the greatest thing. So once I'd done that, I mean, that was the day that kind of the diagnosis was given. And they literally brought up the scan, the barium scan. And in simple terms, if you draw a line on a piece of paper, that was the flow through my bowel. And that's how constricted down the bowel was. almost to the point that it would perforate at any time. And, they told me, it's Crohn's disease. My wife just burst into tears. He's going to die. Literally, he's going to die. Because, 2009, nobody, or I didn't know. I'd never even heard of it.
Yeah.
I'd never even heard of Crohn's disease. And my wife and Eva, getting that diagnosis, not really understanding, neither of us, we were very young. I was young in my eyes to have that. There's no age on this, by the way, but I felt I was quite young. And then as we started to talk to people, you'd get individuals coming up and going, if you told them, they go, God, you're young to have that. And you're always thinking, is this an old person's kind of diagnosis? What is it? And I didn't have a lot of information, I felt, at that time. You have your IBD nurses, which do a fantastic job. But, for me, you're almost just that extra number. I'm not saying that's the case with everyone, but I just felt you were in, had your appointment, given a few tips and, eating, diet, change, etc. So
you're not, I suppose, when you're in that headspace, you're not there with a list of things. You haven't thought about what to ask, do you? It's always when you go away that you think, oh, I wish I'd asked X, Y, Z.
I mean, from diagnosis to you having stoma formation, you'd had like 3 resections, hadn't you?
Yeah, I mean, that was interesting. I mean, I was at, obviously, the local hospital to myself, George Eliot, and they were doing a great job. They were seeing what was there. They were dealing with it at the time. But then it became that I was still having the same symptoms, and there was a battle with the doctors and the surgeons. And there was almost a point of them saying, we can't see what you're kind of saying is happening. There isn't any active Crohn's from what we can see from your scans and things. And again, that really set what happened throughout my journey, where I was having these episodes or resections, but it was the doctor and the support and the conversations that we were having meant that, I could say to them, I've got this pain, I've got this ailment, and they've opened me up and found out there's active Crohn's there. And I guess, all the way through this, since I moved to Warwick, I've had a very good surgeon who's listened to me all the way. And even when the signs haven't been there, he has listened and supported me in a way that, he's done what he's needed to do. The 3 resections, were just a case of them going in and snipping away.
But this is the thing. This is what happens with Crohn's. The longer you have it, the more your body gets used to it. So you don't present as a new patient. You present so differently.
Yeah.
And I mean, the last decade, I've always been surgically dealt with. Mm-hmm. I still see the IBD team. I'm still on medication for life, but I'm still always surgically managed because what doesn't appear up on bloods is different to when they open me up.
Yeah.
It's always it's two
very
different.
Similar, yeah, very, very similar.
And I mean, you went to a different hospital, didn't you? And had more tests and more examinations.
Yeah.
And it was actually the president of the European Crohn's and colitis was your surgeon.
Yeah.
And how did you feel with him, obviously, doing that resection?
I mean,
was your last one?
Yeah, I went, obviously, private at the stage that I wasn't agreeing with, the local hospitals. So I went private, spoke to Simon, obviously had the meeting, consultation with him. And I felt that, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. He clearly knows all the things. He's going to put me right. This will be, again, not knowing what really Crohn's was. This guy's going to put me right. I'm going to be back healthy again. No problem. He knows what he's talking about. We did all the tests. We had another resection. And yeah, I mean, it gave me a little bit of respite until, it came round.
But the problem
again.
that you've got is the more surgery you have, the harder it is to recover from each surgery. It's
and the more they're cutting you open, the more scars that are being left inside, the adhesions, as we all know, over time, and as we'll go through, I've had up to 9 surgeries. 9 times going in is quite a lot of work there. So.
Ooh, yeah.
And you had a young family at the time. Your life can't stop at home, can it? Because you just have this little thing like 9 operations.
Well, we had the youngsters, and we had a third in 2009. We got married in 2010. As all this is going on, it was a lot of personal things happening as well, and exciting kind of things in life that you would do, but still having to manage
your symptoms. Because between 2013 when you had that resection to your next one, you had a 2-year respite, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what happened? Because obviously you was on like feeding tubes, liquid diet.
Yeah, I think for me this was where I really then started to struggle. I mean, to go on to feeding tubes, the dietitians, the surgeons were just like, we need to give the bowel a rest. We've got to give the bowel a rest. It's just not recovering. And, I remember having the modulin drinks first, and then that didn't work. And then they put me on the feeding tubes, and I just cannot even explain how hard that was. I mean, going home after a day's work, I was in a customer-facing role, had the feeding tube in. Obviously, it's very visible. Yeah. Customers asking what's going on. People
Would they actually ask you?
Yeah. They would be quite open and ask.
How did you deal with that in your place of work, being asked?
It's a struggle.
It was difficult, and because obviously you do forget it's there when you're interacting with people. But if somebody's interacting back and asking you about it, it's quite a reminder. So it was really difficult. I mean, I would just say, this is what I'm having done, and it's a feeding tube. I just didn't go too much into it. They're customers at the end of the day. They're not kind of friends or family. I don't want a full discussion about it. It was kind of try and pass that off. But I think the hardest point was getting home. I mean, I don't think smiley faces, dinosaur nuggets have ever looked as so appealing as what it is when you've got a feeding tube in, But to try and mentally deal with that, cooking food for your children while you're not able to eat, and then hook up to the pump for 12 hours overnight to then kind of be fed and then go into work. And as I said to you before, very proud, very career driven. So it was HR and my regional manager that actually came in and sent me home. They forced me to go home and said, we cannot have you working in store like this. It's your health. Think about your health.
I mean, how did you manage with the feeding tube? Because I had a really bad habit of being able to aspirate those. So I ended up having a Hickman line.
Yeah, I could do it. I could do everything that needed to be done and check in, the fluid and everything. But mentally, I was starting to struggle.
Yeah.
And you've got your team around you, your family. It's okay. But full due respect, you're not having to deal with this, and a basic requirement of you eating and not being able to switched off overnight is very hard to deal with.
Yeah, I found it hard because my daughter's father wasn't supportive. So, of course, I'm on a liquid diet. I was on the elemental diet at the time, and I'd been on it for 6 months. And all I used to get every night, well, why don't you eat? I can't eat in front of you if you're not eating. And I'm like, but I can't eat. Oh, but if you just have a little something, I can't have a little something. I have no choice. I've got to do this.
I mean, how were your energy levels if you fed overnight? How would you manage in the daytime then with the kids and family life?
I mean, that you would obviously you would be able to have smaller bottles that you could kind of pumping or syringing over the day. But I was at work at the time, and people around you can't stop eating, and it was almost they were taking themselves away from the rest area because they didn't want to eat around me. That wasn't fair on them either. So I was impacting them, and although it wasn't a big thing for them, and as their manager, as a friend, they were very supportive, but it was still influencing their day-to-day. They don't come into work to not have the rest and time, but I felt that I was affecting that.
I know, but maybe they thought that they was being respectful in...
Oh, 100%, yeah. They felt that it was their way of supporting me.
Yeah.
In that time, yeah.
I mean, how long was you on that for? Because you then had your stoma formation, but I'm looking at it like you was maybe on that liquid diet for a year.
I would say around about the 9 months it was. And I always remember the delivery guy turning up, and when it first turned up, not really expecting, what was going to ensue and what I was expected to do. And boxes and boxes would turn up, like filled the hallway up. And I was like, wow, but this is keeping me alive, technically. Yeah. I mean, and this is, reducing the inflammation, hopefully, in the bowel, what the doctors are saying. They're telling me to rest the bowel, it'll ease it. I think, this was also a measure as well to make sure the bowel was in the best of health that it could be, ready to have the stoma. Formation.
So did you know you were the stoma was the end goal at this point? Or was it just discussed?
No. I mean, it was me that I basically said I'd had enough. Yeah. The toll on my mental health was starting to play massively, and I was struggling, and it's very difficult to try and explain to someone how that makes you feel or how you feel at that time. And I just went into doctors, and my surgeon, I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. And, I was having some pretty dark thoughts. And I guess at that time, that's probably where I started to have them thoughts quite a lot of the time.
I mean, you seem to come across as quite a resilient person, and you had a good family around you. But even then, you needed, something had to happen, didn't it? Yeah,
I mean, yes. I mean, agreed. A lot of people say, you are a very resilient person, Kev. And, within my working career, a lot of individuals that's one of the big things or characteristics they say that I bring to the table. But that's only over real kind of gritted determination for myself to get through this. I'm trying my hardest to deal with what's thrown at you. And, at that point, every day was a battle. Yeah. It was a battle.
And I think, obviously, you're a man, you're expected to provide and do everything. Did you feel like that also impacted your mental health? Did you feel a lot weaker and felt like you should be the strong one, but you're relying on your support system around you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm maybe old school in the way that I think that I should be able to provide. There's no rules in our house that say, no one can do this or do that, but I feel that as the guy, I want to provide for my family, for my wife. I want to give them all the things that they want. I was quite privileged that, my parents gave me everything that they could. And if I can do that with my family, that's great. But obviously, being in and out of work, and I guess that worry of them not knowing when's he going to be back? How long's he going to be off? Okay, we're going to cover your salary this month, but we need to start seeing you back in work. Yeah. And at that point, that employer was very good in how they delivered what they did for me, the support that they give. That them payments were not never ending, but they were more than what was in your normal standard policies. And, there was more support there given to me than what you would normally assume or see.
Yeah, because with HRs, there is actually an insurance that they have that covers staff with long-term medical issues.
Yeah.
So they're not losing out in paying the member of staff, and the member of staff has then got that security to know that yes, they're getting paid, whether it's full pay or sick pay at the moment, but they've got that security, and they're going to, when they do go back to work.
And I think that's, as businesses probably need to be better explaining that to individuals. Now, you've got that old age thing that people might take more than they should, but what about the genuine people, that really are struggling? One of my operations, I knew that I just started a new job in the July. In the October, I was having a resection done. I wasn't able to have any sick pay or anything. I just started a new role. I had to take holiday. And, I took the holiday that I could have had, a little bit of an agreement with them, but I was back in work after 6 weeks. I was still having my stomach packed.
Oh my gosh.
So I was still having my stomach packed twice a day. In the morning I'd go to doctors, I'd go to work. In the afternoon, I'd go back to doctors, repacked, ready for the morning, to go back to doctors, and so on.
It wasn't even back to the doctors, was it? It was up to the clinic to have your wounds packed.
Yeah.
So you had your stoma formed in 2016. So how much were you prepared for that? Was it urgent?
I mean, in my head, I thought I prepared for it as best as I could. I wore a fake stoma.
Oh, you wore the fake stoma?
I wore the fake foam stoma. Yeah. I thought, I'm going to rock this. I got a selection of bags, rocking the bags, filling them up with a bit of water, just to try and get a bit of weight in there, just to try and understand actually what it is.
Yeah.
That said,
it doesn't set you up for what you wake up to, does it?
No. It doesn't. And I try and explain to people, I don't think anybody can prepare you for something that should be on the inside is now on the outside.
Yeah.
And I kind of struggled with
inside
that.
Out.
Yeah, inside out. Yeah.
I mean, I've said this loads of times before. I had a child with a stoma already, and I couldn't look at mine. I could not. I'd looked after Jake for 5 years with one, and I thought, I'm going to boss this. This isn't going to faze me. And I looked at it. I felt physically sick, and I couldn't look at it for days.
Do you know what? I get this all the time because my stoma's really small. I'm known for showing my stoma. And I get people, it's really sore. I'm really jealous of your stoma. I'm like, mate, if you'd have seen it, then I come round from surgery. It was a totally different story. What have you done to me?
They changed so much. I mean, what advice would you give to, not men in particular, everyone, but particularly if you're the type of person that doesn't want to go down the route of trying the fake one and all that, what did you do that really helped? Was it that got you in the psyche?
I think that was the main thing that got me into understanding, or maybe visualizing. I think for me it was a visualization point that I needed. I needed to be able to look down and see what I was going to see or what others were going to see, because this is a two-way thing. What's my wife going to see? And I think it doesn't matter how much information comes from your stoma nurses or your surgeon. And my surgeon was very, very good. He is absolutely amazing, and we have a really good relationship. He would draw me diagrams, he would give me advice, he would talk me through loads of stuff, but I needed to visually see how that was going to look. And I think the difficulty for me was once I let Jen see that and that part of me, I then started to also think,
because
she's not going to find me.
Yeah, I think we all go through that mindset, don't we? Of worry.
We all know as a general whole that mental health support following stoma surgery is not a thing. No. And there are people that feel like they're not given enough advice, they're not taught correctly. And I've got to hear that you felt very isolated early on, even with the stoma nurses. Why did you feel so isolated?
Yeah, I think, is it a man thing? Is it the fact that I'm kind of trying to be the big bravado and I'm okay? Leave me. I'll
like
deal
that was
with
your
it.
coping mechanism in some respects. Was it, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I think to try and take the focus off what's there, to have lots of other things going on. I have to have things happening all the time. People call me a magpie because I'm almost at work. I'm almost like, I like that, I like that, I like that. And, I've got lots of different things going on at different times. And I think that was one way that I could cope with it. But, if you go on to, the social medias now, you'll see lots of females sharing their stories, photos. And, at that point, I felt, that there wasn't a lot of guys that I could talk to. And could I reach out to a female? Could a guy reach out to a female on Instagram when you hear all the stories?
You can. And there's always a thing. So it depends how the start of the message is worded. If it's
hey babe,
then no. But most people would be, hi, I've been following you for a while. I don't know how to reach out, but I'm having an issue. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. I know the genuine from
for me,
the non-genuine.
At that time, though, it was, I wasn't active on Instagram. I wasn't massively active. I wasn't massively active on Facebook. I was very much career kind of driven, just getting on with stuff. And it wasn't really my norm. And, you can ask the stoma nurses for advice, etc. That's great. They will give all the advice. And, the team that I have at Warwick are fantastic. They do. I can call them and, they're calling me back the same day. It's great, that if I need it. But when it's first formed and lying there, when your visitors have all gone home, I had a room on my own when I first come back from surgery. So my parents had gone, my wife had gone, nurse had gone, I was on my own.
And
I've got a see-through bag. It is amazing having the room, but you have that see-through bag.
I wish if they used, this is a shameless plug, but whatever.
No. There is a reason.
I get the reason, I get it, but I don't know, I think it'd be nice if, I know mine was just there and I thought, I wish it had been covered and then I could get rid of whatever was covering it to see the bag.
Yeah, but
like that.
This is the thing. As much as we can shamelessly plug the bags that we use, which are, by the way, FY amazing. However, that there is a reason for that bag. That bag is a large output bag for one. It's huge. So that means that it's easier for the nurses to empty when the patient is on complete bed rest.
Oh, no, I mean the fact that I know I was lying there and the bag was there. It wasn't covered, and I don't know whether it was because I was out of it and they'd been to check it and didn't put my blanket back up. But I remember looking down and being, oh, no.
You've got, so for those of us with Crohn's, we generally have a habit of stuff trying to recess back inside instead of staying where it's meant to. Mm-hmm. So they put in like a long thing that's called a bridge that stops it from falling back in. And obviously that bag has to stay on until the bridge has been removed.
How long's that then?
It depends. Most surgeons will normally leave the bridge on maybe 4 or 5 days before they pop it off.
I mean, with your stoma, when you saw it, what was your first thoughts? Did it look like how you thought it was going to look?
I think I went through the thought process of what have I done? Because I'd kind of, I'd asked for it. I didn't know how it was going to work after that. Obviously, now it's formed, now it's there. It's almost like, well, why did I ask for this? And Yeah, I've really kind of struggled with that kind of looking down and kind of seeing it, and
It's very swollen. It's very red. Sometimes if it's not working properly, it's black.
yeah.
It's just...
And I think that first, them initial kind of bag changes as well are quite difficult.
Oh, yeah.
The getting used to smells, or, changing it, or cutting your bags, or, waking up and there's been a leak and you think, is this how it's going to be?
Oh,
It's all right. I'm having a giggle to myself, because if I think of my first bag change versus me trying to change my bag to the countdown theme tune, like in 30 seconds, like the first bag change ever, it's like half an hour because you're so careful and because it's so sore and everything else. I was just having a giggle to myself thinking first bag change versus me trying to get it done in a 30-second countdown reel for Instagram.
How long was it until you felt like you were in a flow with things? Because from the start to where you are now, it must be worlds apart when you're changing your bag.
Yeah.
Are you on autopilot these days?
Yeah, now I could literally do it with my eyes kind of shut. And
have you tried that?
I haven't. It might be a new thing for
it's
Instagram.
A real idea, yeah.
Put a blindfold on and have a go.
Since your stoma formation in 2016, you've had another 4 surgeries.
Yeah.
How have you managed? Because you had a resection which led to intensive care due to sepsis in 2018. 2020, you underwent another resection and your laparotomy line wouldn't heal.
Yeah.
So you was having that packed for months. And then you had proctectomy surgery, and a hernia repair, which led to sepsis again and having to have a drain fitted and infection cleaning. And then in October of 2023, so August to September and October of 2023, more infection spikes, a sepsis infection collection in your groin. Mm-hmm. How the hell have you managed? Because that is a lot to put a person through.
Yeah, I think, the first... Going back to the first sepsis issue and the intensive care, I can remember that to the day, to the point. And it's one of the things that I've probably struggled with the most, because I know at that point, 100% I was on my way out. And the reason I say that is I remember shouting the doctor, remember the junior doctor's name, David, shouted him. I said, there's something wrong. And they came over to me, he's put the stethoscope on my back, and that is the last I remember. I can remember seeing, and it's funny to say, but clearly we've all had them points where we say we've seen the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I can still see that light. I can see the curtains drawn and the light shining through the middle of it. And I was shouting my daughter's name. And I can still see and hear it to this day. And I've struggled to get over that quite a lot. And when I come round, and back onto the ward, I remember my mum and dad had been called, Jen had been called to the hospital. The guys opposite me said, wow, you've scared us. Even the surgeon, he says, you've put a fright up us. And that's the one there that's really kind of affected me probably the most mentally, because I felt that I was a goner at that point.
Was you on a ventilator at that point?
Yeah, I woke up and I had literally tubes out of everywhere. And when I say tubes, not just a little mask, I mean big, hefty tubes. And, you can literally, it's silent, but you can hear these machines pumping
the thing is
oxygen.
With sepsis, you get fight or flight. And a lot of people choose flight instead of fight, because when you're septic, because your brain and your body can't quite comprehend what's happening, they put you into an induced coma. You don't have a choice. It's an induced coma because your body needs time to heal without your brain and without you actually being aware of what's going on, because it's too much for your brain and for your body to handle. And when I was septic, they were pinning me down, trying to get a breathing tube down my throat. And I was fighting the sedation because I had Maisie. And like you said, they give you a session of counselling after you've been on life support. And that is all they give you.
Did you get that the same, or did you get anything?
No. I mean, I've literally spoke to no one about this, and you know, a lot of people have said, I think you probably need to just air that, because it still does affect me a little bit. You know, I remember my parents being there, and I can't do this anymore. And you know, my mum was in me. You've been through enough so far, and again, you know, that same conversation was had in last year. You know, I got the sepsis the second time after the proctocolectomy, and I remember not feeling well, and I thought, I've felt this before. I know what this is. Told them, they'd done a scan and they said, we're taking surgery now. We need to fit this drain, and where they'd sewn the back end up, they put a drain back in there to clear. They cleaned it all out, obviously, and then shoved a drain, or placed a drain. Placed a drain. I'm sure it was shoved. This guy's been here so many times. But placed it, you know, where it had all been sewn up, and then that was in then for, you know, around probably 6 weeks after the surgery.
And that is not a nice place to have a train.
You know, you're struggling to sit anyway.
You weren't in work, were you?
No.
That's all right. I mean, I was waiting for you to go. Yeah.
I mean, they were fantastic about this. I mean, I'd moved jobs a couple of times since, you know, the customer facing. And, you know, I had a great manager, and, you know, she completely understood, supported anything I needed. And, you know, that is the kind of support that you need from your manager. You know, I've been a manager, you know, I'm a manager now, and, you know, that's how people need to be treated, with respect and kind of an understanding.
Yeah. I mean, how have you managed with your mental health? Because the problem that you've got when you're septic, you know you're dying.
Yeah.
It is the strangest feeling that you will ever feel in your life, but you know you're dying. You can feel, you feel like death. You literally feel like, if I close my eyes now, that's it. I'm done. And the problem that you've got, the more times that you have sepsis, the harder it is for your body to fight it every time. Yeah. I mean, I've got issues now. I mean, I'm 39 this year. I'm facing another surgery where I know I could possibly go septic again because of what I've got to go through. And I'm absolutely petrified because my blood pressure's very, very low. It doesn't matter, even if I'm really, really ill. My blood pressure is still something like 90 over 70. It's proper low. It's the same with my temperature. Even though I've got an infection, my temperature is still not spiking. It takes ages when I'm septic for it to notice in my bloods. They don't start getting it until it starts jumping to the 2s, the 3s and the 400s. The more you have sepsis, the harder it is to fight it. And the impact on your mental health, if you know you're feeling ill again and having to go back into hospital, you're reluctant to do it because you don't want to put yourself through that. But how do you manage it with your mental health? And like I say, it's fight or flight. But with your mental health, and especially like being that ill, there are times when you think, how can I do this again? How do I?
What's kept you going? Because you've been battling this for 16 years now, at least. How do you? I mean, you like the Kev we met at the get together. You're very warm, very friendly, easy to talk to. You don't seem to carry it as you are now, but obviously you must do mentally. How do you keep going?
I think someone nailed it a few years back. I shared my story at a previous employer I worked at, and I work in HR people teams. I was an engagement manager at the time, so all that great stuff that goes on at work, all them experience kind of stuff. And I wanted to try and get people to share their stories, so I thought, right, I'll kick this off. And people in the business said to me, "You would never have known."
Yeah, I can believe.
And they said, "You do a very good job of hiding it." And I think that's the problem. I hide a lot of what I go through because I don't want to be the burden on somebody.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the burden on my wife, or I don't want my kids to see any more of what they've already had to see. They've been there and they've seen me with all the staples, and we've played it up. It's a shark attack, and Dad's been on the beach and giving it the bravado, but really we know what it is. And I've I have hid a lot of it. I don't necessarily I don't speak to people about it. I don't. This is probably today the first time I've probably opened up quite a bit about it.
I mean, why don't... It's hard, sorry. It's making me cry.
I just can't believe how much you've been through, Kev, and you're just... Look at you, and the way you carried yourself in that get-together, and you must have found a lot of things triggering.
I mean,
That must have been hard.
Yeah, I mean, listening to... what was there, around approximately 16 of us all talking about journeys. And, I wanted to do this for me because I've held so much back and hid so much from people, not because I don't want them to know, just because why should I share it? But then I also think, as I lay last year, and this all came from last year, I had that proctocolectomy done, and I thought, I'd again, sepsis, and I told my mum again, I can't do it, and she went, "Get a grip, Kevin, sort yourself out, as mums do." And I thought, for me, there's no one I can reach out to. What if someone else is feeling like this and I can give them that avenue to be able to reach out? And I guess that's why I wanted to do this, and I wanted to, do the social media sides. But, in my role, I'm a global people experience manager. I ensure people have great experiences from that onboarding to exit in their job. I look after their well-being. How can I sit here and look after their well-being if I'm not looking after my own? How can I expect them to share their story if I don't share my own?
Because we're old school and it was what we was taught to do. Yeah,
and whether that's right or whether that's, wrong, that's only the individual will know that. But for me, I very resilient, as you said, 100%, Where 2023, before my proctocolectomy, I ran the London Marathon, and I was adamant whether I crawl it, whatever I do, I'm going to get to the end of it. I didn't want anyone with me. My wife was going to come, my kids were going to, I don't want anybody there. I just want to do this on my own. And I remember, I'm going to tear up now. I remember my wife calling me, and I said, "Stop calling me." I said, and I just started bawling. Oh, I'm going to start bawling now, but I just started bawling, and I was like, I just need to do this. I just need to do it on my own. And it was my point of saying, you can do it. And even if you have got Crohn's and you've been through all these things, being resilient is the biggest thing, that you can give anybody or anyone could take on from these conversations. Being resilient is the biggest best thing that you could kind of harness and drive through, because that's what got me through that marathon. You know, I was thinking about all the times I've laid there, and I was thinking about my kid, and I was like, I'm going to get that medal. I'm going to show the kids. And in my office, it sits there above, looking back at me every single day as a reminder to say, you did it.
How did you feel at the end of that race?
Exhausted.
Could you walk? I've only done a half marathon, so I can't relate. But
it was interesting. I could walk, and weirdly, I never trained for it. So, and no one will believe this. So,
were you running at all?
In the February, I ran a half marathon. On the Sunday before the London Marathon, I ran 10 miles, and then the marathon day, I ran the full 26 miles.
My God, what do you mind me asking your time?
Oh, it's 5.5 hours. I still shuffle-footed halfway round.
You got round.
You got round. I was styling it out to the music.
Yeah.
So as the music was coming along, it was a bit of a dance. But you know, that's I guess
it's felt like an achievement.
It's that achievement, and I think, you know, with work as well, I see my career as being my achievement, and you know, I want my kids to do really well. I want them to look up and go, wow, Dad had all these things go on, but he was still able to achieve X, Y, and Z. And I think for me, all I want to do is achieve the best, or be the best that I can be. And you know, I've got a great career and an opportunity that I'm in now, and I'm going to push and push on that. But for anyone else, you know, it really is about kind of finding out what that one thing is, and really pushing on with it. But that said, I feel, you know, I do need to probably open up more. I probably need to.
Is that why you started the social media then?
100%. Yeah, that is why I've done all this. You know, that's why I came to that. And I felt really out my comfort zone, because, you know, you've got all you guys that have been together, some of them 2-3 years. You've got this new face bowl up, and, you know, I'm like, I'm on my crutches, you know, at the time.
You were just styling it out, that's all.
Hobbled in.
I remember we was in the car and I had your shirt, and you was like, oh, are you sure? And I'm like, honestly, I don't mind. I'm like trying to get the doors so you and summer can get through on your botches.
Yeah. And, you know, from that, from lying, in that bed in, you know, last July, August, when I had the proctocolectomy done, was, you know, if I can share a little bit of what I've been through, and I'm getting there with it. You know, did I ever think I would put on social media a picture of my top half of my body with my stoma out? Never in a million years. But you know, for me, that is one thing that I can say I've done, and feel proud of that.
Yeah, so you should.
Whether anyone agrees or not, that's a goal for me.
There needs to be more men.
Yeah,
advocates.
It's a lot of people have been sharing that lately, haven't they? The lack of male representatives in the community, and you're definitely one people should be following.
Thank you.
So, I mean, what advice would you give to other ostomates that may be facing stoma surgery?
I think for me is, as I did, you know, do that kind of investigation, kind of information, find out what works best for you. You know, as I said, you know, I'd used the fake stoma, I'd spoke to my stoma nurses, reach out to other individuals that have it. You know, that was one of the things that I didn't do, but I wish I probably had have done, because whether it is male or female, it doesn't matter. You know, we should be able to ask that question, and really, just for me now, is really just embrace. You know, this has helped me. It's got me through to where I am now. You know, I have a great family, I have a great career, and you know, just going through day by day, managing, seeing what other challenges it throws up. As we know, it throws up many challenges, but just embracing life in general and just getting on with what we do best.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we really appreciate you sharing what you haven't done so much before. And I do think a lot of men are going to really take something from this episode. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. I hope so. Thank you.
It is an honour to hear you talk that vulnerable and really sharing that personal stuff. So thank you. So thank you to everyone who's listened to this episode of Beyond the Pouch. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can get information on future episodes, and we hope to see you again next time. Thank you.